Hi. Uh, this little chat is based on an article which I read in the Mint today. It was a piece about Vishal Bhardwaj, and I found it pretty interesting. And but before I get there, I think just a little background. Some of you who know me must be aware that I see a lot of films. I'm quite a film buff, if I may say so, and I must tell you why I like to see films, or at least what is it that fascinates me about them. At the outset, it's just the whole putting together of a story and drawing us in, keeping us fascinated for like 2, 3 hours there on the seat is inspiring. I mean, for anybody who's made even a 3-minute film with some kind of a story behind it, you know that it's not a joke. And then for somebody to actually put together what 2, 2.5 hours with characters and music and the whole magic, colors and all the technicalities and brilliant edits, that's something which I am completely inspired by. I mean, I think it's a clear skill, it's an art form, and so at the outset, that's what I like. And of course, if it's a good film, if it's something which really holds you onto the seat, and obviously far better work has happened there. So which obviously would give you an idea that what I like about a film is first and foremost, or what I appreciate or admire is the filmmaker, the guy who's the director of the film. I give complete and total credit for a good film to the director more than anybody else. And so often when I see, especially a brilliant film, I think about the director and I think about how and what might have made him to make a film of that kind. And, right from good old Sholay. I mean, no discussion on film can be without Sholay, can he? Can it? So if you think about a film like Sholay, and after so many years, it's still completely, you know, kind of gives us goosebumps. Some of us who live in the Sholay world, in a sense. Uh, what interests me about the film is how did Ramesh Sippy make that film? I mean, what made him conceive those characters and their stories, and I mean, right from a Surma Bhopali to a Basanti to to of course Jay and Viru and all of them, and made us understand each and every character, the entire the scenes, the edits. They were just so perfect. So I wonder, did Ramesh Sippy grow up on a huge diet of Western films, the John Wayne, and, Sundance Kid types? How did he think about Sholay? Okay, so I it 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 it's a question that I ask. I mean, on the other hand, think of somebody else like a Farhan Akhtar and who makes something like Dil Chahta Hai, a movie that becomes iconic in a sense. Now here it's little easier to possibly imagine without knowing anything personal, but I can imagine the son of Javed Akhtar, probably born in the Pali Hill, Carter Road kind of an area, having friends who were like the characters of Dil Chahta Hai, having kids who had a lot of uh, luxuries in life and yet wanted to do something about their own life in their own way, pretty much the way Dil Chahta Hai characters behave. And that kind of created a story of Dil Chahta Hai, and it completely connected with a huge amount of city audience, and went on to become the success that it became. Or think of somebody like a Rakesh Om Prakash Mehra, who made a film like Rang De Basanti. Now again, I have not studied Rakesh's background or anything seriously, but I can visualize him to have, to have been born and brought up in Delhi. Yeah, he doesn't hide. At least the films that he makes don't hide the Delhi connection, and possibly being one of those rebellious kinds who did not, um, you know, fit into a very typical, upbringing or society, and that has come out in films like Ux for to begin with, and then Rang De Basanti in a certain way. So that's at least that's parallel. That's the connection that I draw, and that's my imagination mostly. But I think there has to be something that a director feels, maybe from his background, that makes him create the films that he creates. And which brings me back to Vishal Bhardwaj. The article about him is what has inspired me to do this little talk. And Vishal has been somebody I wondered a lot about. At least from the time I started to think about him and his presence in the film industry, it was his transformation from being a music composer for films like Matches to becoming a film director, a person who makes films like Makbul and Omkara and Kamine and whatnot. So it's amazing. I mean, I haven't heard too many people who started off being music composers and then went on to become filmmakers and to do as successfully a job as a composer as a maker of films. I mean, obviously he had something special in him. And I've read bits and pieces about him, about how he accidentally happened to meet Gulzar at Doordarshan or All India Radio or something, and how life changed for him after that. And, and then today I read this little larger piece in the Mint, and I mean, I could see something beyond. One of the most striking facts about his life was that, first of all, he came from a very small town in UP, and then they migrated to Meerut. He also happened to be a cricketer and used to go and practice at the nets and stuff. Now, at an age of 19, one day he comes back from his net practice of cricket and he reaches home, and what does he find? All his belongings, all the belongings of his family from the house have been thrown onto the streets. A kind of scene you'll typically find only in films. I have never seen something like this in real life. But he sees that, but worse, in the middle of it all lay the body of his father, dead, all at the age of 18, 19. Now that's the kind of shock that he got early in life. And from there, to dig himself out and convert himself to whatever he is today, he would have gone through a lot of rough ride. And that rough ride and that kind of experience of life at the ground level has possibly enabled him to make films like Makbul and Omkara and Ishkiya and things of that kind. Extremely powerful, extremely real, extremely close to the real world of that part of the country. So, indeed, fascinating journey. My my respect for him has only gone up after today's piece. And one of the things which it mentions is how he saw some English films and realized that how violence can be romanticized in a sense, and which is again what we see in films of his like Omkara and Makbul and Kamine. So I'm pretty impressed with Vishal. I've just gone and seen Sat Khun Maaf, and I'll share something about it either in a blog or in a similar talk in some time. Thanks.